Like a backstage pass to the world of fly fishing travel, this is Waypoints, the podcast of destination angling. News and events, helpful travel tips, destination profiles, great stories, and expert advice from some of the most seasoned and experienced names in fishing travel. Waypoints is presented by Yellow Dog Fly Fishing, the industry's #1 specialty travel company and the fly shop for the world of fly fishing. Freshwater or saltwater, international or domestic, Yellow Dog has you covered for your next fishing adventure. And now your host, author, photographer, and world traveler, Jim Klug.
Welcome back to Waypoints, where today we're headed to the untamed wilderness of Southwest Alaska. The Nushagak River, often referred to simply as the Nush, is one of Alaska's most legendary salmon rivers, renowned for its massive runs of wild fish, a remote wilderness setting, and exceptional fishing opportunities for some of the most beautiful rainbow trout on the planet. The Nushagak River originates in the Nushagak Hills, part of southwest Alaska, and flows approximately 280 miles through pristine wilderness before emptying into Nushagak Bay, which connects to Bristol Bay and eventually the Bering Sea. One of the largest river systems in southwest Alaska, the river flows through pristine, roadless terrain and is accessible only by bush plane or boat. Famous for what is typically the largest annual wild king salmon run in Alaska, the Nush is also home to all 5 species of Pacific salmon, making it one of the most diverse salmon rivers in the world. And when the salmon are present, you of course have char, grayling, dollies, pike, and in this case, some of the fattest, healthiest leopard rainbows found anywhere. Joining us for this episode of Waypoints are Dave Pishko and Sawyer KEENER with Outpost on the Nush, a wilderness camp operation that puts anglers in the very heart of the action on the Nushagak. The Outpost is perfectly positioned on the most productive stretch of the river, with a comfortable wilderness-based camp designed to maximize fishing time, minimize distractions, and immerse anglers in the raw beauty of Alaska's Bristol Bay region. The operation and location was originally established in 1982, founded by guide and outfitter Dave Egdorf, who sought to create the ultimate destination for rainbow trout fanatics and wilderness enthusiasts. Recognizing the potential of the upper Nushagak River, with its clear running waters and abundant fish populations, Egdorf and his family made it their home river, operating under the name of Western Alaska Sport Fishing for more than 3 decades. In 2021, the camp transitioned ownership to Dave Pishko, the operation's former head guide who had worked for years with the Egdorfs. Pishko renovated and rebranded the operation, which today operates as Outpost on the Nush. Despite the change in management, ownership, and name, the camp continues to uphold the legacy of offering unparalleled access to the abundant fisheries and finest stretches of this amazing river. In this episode, we'll talk with Dave and Sawyer about the unique experience of operating a remote river operation in one of the last great wild fisheries in North America. From the logistical challenges of running a fly-in camp in Alaska to the exhilaration of chasing giant fish throughout the season, we'll hear what it takes to make a dream like Outpost on the Nush a reality. We'll also explore the conservation importance of Bristol Bay, the seasonal rhythms of the Nushagak, and what guests can expect from a week in the wild, where bears far outnumber people and fish flood the river and instinctively flock like the salmon of Capistrano. Which, if you don't know that movie reference and recognize where that line came from, you may need to revisit the classics. But in all seriousness, whether you're a focused salmon angler, a wild trout fanatic, someone who's always dreamed of experiencing the magic of Alaskan wilderness fishing, or if you're simply curious about what goes into running a camp operation in such a remote and wild setting, this episode will deliver a true taste of life on the Nushagak. Waypoints is sponsored by Patagonia. To bring their gear to life, Patagonia is motivated by relentless curiosity and a passion for the wild. They evaluate hundreds of materials, build dozens of prototypes, and spend seasons punishing them in the world's most extreme conditions. The work is the guide, and Patagonia never tires of exploring, learning, and improving. Be sure to check out Patagonia's new Swift Current waders, repatterned and redesigned for bulk reduction, reduced seam stress, increased maneuverability, and improved repairability. Made from recycled materials without intentionally added PFAS, Swift Current waders move better in and out of the water. Dave and Sawyer, welcome to Waypoints. Thanks for sitting down with us today. It's good to be doing this in person, and I've been looking forward to this one for a while.
Jim, thanks so much for having Sawyer and I. Like I said, we barely made it here, but thankfully we are here and we're ready to get this rolling.
Perfect. Well, we're excited to hear your story, hear about your amazing operation. Dave, let's start with you. You are the owner and head guide for the Outpost on the Nush operation. You've been a lifelong outdoorsman and angler, but in kind of going through your bio and putting all this information together, you also have some interesting other skills, a pretty phenomenal background outside of fishing. You've done a lot of things.
Yes, sir, I have. And it goes from ranching to rodeo to farming to back to fishing. But let's just keep this on the fishing side. You know, my crazy life is, I should write a book, to be honest with you, Jim, believe it or not.
I would read that book, Dave.
I think maybe a few people would. I don't think it'd be too boring. But to be honest with you, fishing has always been my passion since I'm knee-high to a grasshopper. All right, it's all I think about, even when I'm sleeping. Okay, so my love and passion for fishing is... It's hard to explain. You know,
it's a serious sickness.
It is a sickness. It is a sickness, and it's not an obsession. I'd call it a passion times 10.
I like that.
Yes, sir.
I like that. And spent a lot of time in Montana, obviously Alaska for probably more summers that you can count. You're making the move to Florida here pretty soon for the off season of Alaska.
Yes, sir. I'm tired of cold. My body wants to be warm again from rodeo days. You know, I'm beat up and banged up, and my body's like, you know what? I just want to be warm.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to like it.
Those negative 23 mornings in Montana. Yeah.
This doesn't appease me anymore. You know, people are saying, you know, it's 30 below, and then we're going to have a 70-degree temperature swing. You know what? Enjoy it. I'm going to stay sunny, 75 and sunny. All right.
I like it.
You know, the fish. Let's just chase some powerhouse fish now.
That's right.
You know.
And you've always got Alaska in the summer.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I got the best of both worlds.
You'll get the temperature swings.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely. Sawyer, you grew up in the Jefferson Valley of Montana. You're now a co-owner with Outpost on the Nush, a guide. You've had a number of other industry jobs prior to the Alaska career. How did you first find your way to Alaska? And tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Yeah. So first off, I grew up in Southwest Montana. So, you know, it's the trout mecca of the world, arguably. But I kind of took the opposite approach. You know, most folks, when they come in the industry, they start off in a guiding position and then they find their way sitting in a cubicle, sitting in the office. But I started the opposite. I was able to get on at Winston Rods and Bauer Fly Reels. And I worked there for a few years, and that, you know, you just meet a lot of connections in this industry, as you guys know. And I met a gentleman by the name of Jack Porter, who you probably know very well.
Yeah, Jack is with us on the Yellow Dog team.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And Jack actually introduced me to Dave, and Dave fell for my trick, and now we work together. So
Trick.
He said, all right, I've done my cubicle time. Boxes checked. Time to get up to Alaska.
Exactly. I mean, I was chomping at the bit. You know, it was always a goal for me.
I had to twist his arm, Jim. He
Clearly.
didn't come the first year.
Really?
No. He didn't. He stiffed me.
He said, I got to stand in front of this computer screen.
I'd hire somebody else. And then finally he realized what he was missing.
It is true. It is true. I did back out last second. You know, I just had some things I need to finish up. But, you know, the timing worked out. The crew we have, you know, just all meant to be. So,
oh, there you go. All good things are meant to be, and I love it. Let's talk about the Nushagak River itself. Can you give us some background on the river and what makes this particular river and fishery so special? What is it about the Nush that's just kind of attained this legendary, iconic status in Alaska?
I mean, to me, guys, the Nushagak is just a wild, free-flowing, free body of water. There's nothing there. It's just savagery all about it. And if you're a streamer junkie or a mouse junkie like myself, you've got all the structure and all the undercut banks to work till your eyes just fall out of your head. You don't have enough time to cast everything you want to. That's what I think a river should be.
And you guys are located right on the banks of the Nushagak. Tell us more about the Outpost on the Nush operation. Describe the operation, the location. What makes this offering unique compared to, you know, all of the other lodge and camp operations that are scattered throughout Alaska? I mean, when you're researching an Alaska trip, let's say, there are endless options. There's so many things that are being offered out there. What is it that sets Outpost and your location and your fishery apart from all the other noise that's out there?
I think number one, just finding the location of where we're at. That's one of the hardest things to do. People don't know. We tell them, we're nearly 300 miles from Bristol Bay. And we are truly super remote. And I think that's what some people get confused is, they go to Alaska and there's places where you're going to see other folks. Where we're at, a lot of times you don't see other folks. So just describing to people just how remote we are and what it takes, the logistics to get to us. And that just adds to just the pristine of the upper Nushagak. It's a true remote experience that you can't find anywhere around the world. So.
And, it's interesting because a lot of times people think, well, sure, it's Alaska. It's all going to be remote. But the fact is, you go to places like the Moraine or Funnel or, Brooks. They're great fisheries and they're home to tons of big fish. And they're, in a lot of ways must visit and must fish destinations. They're iconic. But you're not going to have those places to yourself these days. You're just not. No. Yeah, I mean, you're going to see other anglers where you guys are. That's rarely the case. Dave, tell us a little bit about the camp itself. It's set up right on the river. You're on the banks of the Nush. Tell us about the accommodations, kind of the overall setup of what you guys offer.
Okay, well, I mean, camp is rustic, folks. I mean, but it has all the creature comforts of home. I mean, we are out in the middle of nowhere. I call it, we're on Gilligan's Island because we are on an island. I mean, the river kind of goes around us. The accommodations, we used to use the Weatherport tents when Dave and Kim owned it. My crew, we just builded cabins. Okay, we have 10 by 10 hard-sided cabins for everybody, 6 of them. We generally like to take 6 people per week. That way everybody gets their own cabin, everybody gets their own space. Okay, and that's what I like because it also gives a day off and it gives his section of river a rest. That's huge. I mean, the thing of it is, folks, you got to take care of your resource so it takes care of you. Okay, and the other thing about camp is it's small. It's a very intimate family style setting. Okay. When the generators go out, all you hear is nature. And that's what I wait for. Who wants to hear a generator run that night? Not me. Yeah. Not me at all. But also about camp, folks, we have 3 incinerating toilets. We don't have septic up there. There's no really way to haul this crap out, let's just say. So we invested in incinerating toilets. You can do number 1 and number 2 out there. Most of the time we tell the men, just pull up a tree. It's like we're camping. Let's just be men. And we're women. I mean, there's outdoorsy women out there too that like to just pull up a tree, and I let them. You want to piss on a tree? Go right ahead. I don't care. We'll
You're in Alaska.
You're in Alaska. Who cares? Yeah. But then we also have a lounge where, we call it a lounge. It might be kind of like a tying, drying area. It's where we're tying all our flies. Waiter on, waiter off, warm up area. And then we have a kitchen dining where we solely just kind of leave it for the chef and the dining aspects, breakfast and dinner. And then we have our own guide cabins where us guides sleep. And that's pretty much rounds out camp. I do have a workshop where I can do all my mechanicking and on motors and craft anything I might need to. There's a lot of MacGyver playing at times. But, that basically tells camp in a nutshell. Basically, if you're in one of our client cabins looking out the door, we have doors on them, you are going to see the river within 50 feet.
Yeah, and when you get up in the morning, you eat breakfast, you waiter up, you get your gear together, you walk down the steps right into the boats. Yeah. And off you go. You're fishing.
Exactly.
It's right
exactly.
There.
Yeah.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the food, Sawyer. This is a question we get all the time when guests are coming up. They want to know where they're fishing, where they're sleeping, but they also want to know what they're eating. What kind of meals can anglers expect at the lodge? I know a lot of Alaska camps really emphasize hearty, satisfying meals after a long day on the river. What's your guys' program as far as food goes?
I would describe it as comfort food. Our current chef, Kai, has done a great job of sort of mixing the menu up. So we have some nicer meals where, you're going to have some salmon. You come up to Alaska, people expect to eat salmon. Now, it's not salmon from the upper Nushagak because we are so far up the system, but expect fresh fish from one of our vendors. We'll have steak. So mix in a few nice meals in here, but also burgers and just stuff you would eat at fishing camp. We don't like to go quote unquote bougie, or overboard because we're not that. So it definitely fits sort of our setting. Just like you'd eat if you're hanging with the guys and just out fishing. Obviously we're having breakfast at the lodge. We having lunch on the rivers. Usually just a sandwich, something quick. just to get people out on the water again. That is one thing I'd like to point out is we are fishing focused. You are there to fish. There's not a whole lot else to do there. But yeah, just nice comfort foods. Those are your controllables. The lodging, where people stay, that's a controllable for a nice day. And no matter how the fishing goes, when you come back to a nice home cooked meal, there's not much to complain about.
That's right.
So.
And you guys have a fire pit. You sit around the fire pit at night, and it's just, being, as you said, Dave, in the middle of remote wilderness in Alaska and taking it all in.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you're there. I mean, to me, folks, when I think about Alaska, before I even started guiding there, I had a great uncle and an uncle that visited Alaska and guided there. And they're like, Montana's cool, but you should check out Alaska. I'm like, all right, I'm doing this. And that's how I met Dave Egdorf and so on and so forth. I worked for him. But when you think about Alaska, you just think about nobody around you. I don't want to see anybody. If I would have went to the Kenai or if I would have went to the Moraine, I would have just stayed guiding in Montana, folks. Seriously, I don't want to be around people. There's a reason why I'm there. I love the solitude. And that's what I like.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Egdorfs because Outpost on the Nush, the operation, the location, has a lot of great history. This is not a new upstart operation. No. It was the operation was originally founded by the Egdorf family back in the early 1980s. The camp itself has been in operation for more than 40 years, and there is a reason that it has been and it remains popular and successful today. Obviously, the location, the solitude. But Dave, let me ask you, when did you first connect with the Egdorf family and start working on the Nush?
My first year was 2018. Okay, so 2017 was my last year guiding in Montana. I basically decided in the winter I want to do something different. I'm tired of the bighorn row rounds. I'm not saying that there's something wrong with this, folks. I was also tired of watching a bobber go down. It's just not me. I'm a dry fly streamer junkie. That's me. Okay, nymphing, ain't gonna do it. I don't care. But met Kim and Dave. I knew of them. Okay, but 2018, just sent it. And what's crazy about it was we had a whole new guide crew. Whole new. None of his return guides returned. And I was like, okay, here we go. But it was cool. Because again, one of your workers, Jack Porter, he was one of them. And it's just like, we got all together. We're bonding. We're learning what each other knows. And then Dave comes up and Camille actually showed us the river, thankfully, and kind of gave us a head start. But after that, it's just like we learned it as a brand new crew. And we're like comparing notes and this and that. It was amazing. Like, I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, it's a pretty spectacular place. My very first trip to Alaska 20-some years ago was to Egdorf's camp. That was the first Alaskan experience, was on the Nush, and was blown away by the whole thing. So you're working for Dave, you're guiding for him, and 2021 comes around and you have the opportunity to buy the operation and take things over. How did that come together?
Man, it was scary. I mean, anybody who kind of wants to jump in the lodge thing has to kind of check their mental capacity, I think. Reality. I mean, it's one thing being a guide, and then the next thing is becoming owner and responsible for employees and overhead and logistics and
transfers
and transfer. It's just
everything.
But I knew I could do it. I mean, hard work pays off, folks. And that's what I live for. I mean, hard work is my middle name.
Well, what was that first season like when you had transitioned from, you were head guide, you were worried about the guide schedule, but at the end of the day, you could kind of go back to your cabin and you didn't have that mantle of responsibility of being the owner. And now, here comes your first season where it's yours. You're in charge. What was that first season like?
Well, I will say this. Kim and Dave, honestly, let me, I don't want to say I felt like owner, but I was doing a lot of the maintenance for them. Dave knew, he found out I was very mechanical at first. So basically transitioning to owner, I kind of knew the insides of the business. I didn't know the outside. Okay, the flying logistics. Where am I going to get my food from? How are these folks going to get here? That's the stuff I needed to learn. And what was cool about it was, unfortunately, Dave had quit flying in 21. So we actually had met Rainbow River Aviation, who still does our flying right now, top-notch flight service. And luckily, it kind of gave me like, wow, these guys are really cool to work with. I mean, they're smooth, they're professional. I want to work with these guys. And Chad Hewitt, bless his heart, he walked me through a lot of stuff. And so it wasn't as a big, like, oh, wow.
I got to learn everything right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I kind of knew what I was getting into. The hard part is the booking, getting folks to come to us, because let's face it, folks, everybody is saying the same thing. We are at these shows and on the phone. And how does somebody know or trust in you that somebody isn't, they don't know me? I mean, I don't have a big following. I don't want a big following. I want to stay under the radar.
Yeah.
That's me.
We talk about that all the time. And Alaska is probably the biggest example. There's hundreds of lodges up there and choices. And, nowadays they all have a great website. They all show, pictures of smiling clients hoisting big fish, and they all profess to be the best, right? That's their job in trying to market their operations. But it's challenging, I think, a lot of times for anglers who are looking to plan a trip, of just cutting through the noise and figuring out not just what the good operations are, what the safe operations are, what the experienced operations are, but what's going to be the best fit for what they're looking for. Exactly. And I think that's the biggest challenge, not just for, how to market a lodge program as an owner, but also as a customer or client trying to source and pick the right option.
Exactly.
That's always huge. Well, let me ask you this, Sawyer. Here's a question for you. Having guided up there, now being involved in ownership of the Outpost, because we're going to ask you first, and then we'll ask Dave this too. And again, we could probably do hours just talking about this. But, a lot of times when a guest comes to a lodge operation, your job as the owner and the operator is to make everything look seamless and smooth and easy, right? They shouldn't be thinking of the challenges or everything that goes into behind the scenes, because if you're doing it well, it all looks seamless and easy. But what are some of the biggest challenges for you guys when it comes to operating on the Nush in the super remote area, of getting clients, in and out of camp every week? Running a remote operation in Alaska obviously isn't easy. So what are some of the biggest challenges you've dealt with?
I think it starts off early season before clients even show up. That's when a lot of the work gets done. We like to fly in a few weeks early just to make sure the camp is still there. We don't have people watching camp over the winter, and some of the winters that we get up there are horrendous.
I don't think anyone would survive staying up there all winter by themselves.
Absolutely not. Old owner Dave, he's mentioned stories of 30-foot drifts in camp. So you really never know what you're flying into. Unfortunately, knock on wood, the last few years, it's been fairly easy peasy. I think last year we had to rebuild a window from a moose, taking it out. But other than that, it's been, as far as camp goes, no structural damage. But just getting to camp, once we land, we have a boat stored downriver at our runway, which is about 40 minutes from camp. So Dave and I are usually the first ones in, the startup crew, and we fly in with a motor, and you just hope it works, and you hope it starts up. Once it starts up, you just have to make sure you can actually get to camp. That sometimes there's channels that are blocked, and we have to take a chainsaw and cut them out. We also need to think about wood. So that's probably the most dangerous part of our job, is going out in the bush and getting wood, because in Alaska, you have to cut from a dead tree. There can't be any live trees. So finding wood, going in the bush, cutting the wood, loading it onto the boat, bringing it back to camp, unloading it off the boat, stacking it, splitting it, and having enough for the whole season.
And then doing it 100 more times so you can stock up.
Exactly.
That's the glamorous part of guiding in Alaska. A lot of people don't realize it's like the firewood runs and all, especially the preseason prep when you're opening and getting ready for clients.
Right.
That's a ton of work.
I would say that is when a lot of our physical work that you don't see, like not us rowing the boats, just other things like that clients don't see, starts before they even get there.
And then Dave, obviously the only way to get to camp and the way that clients come in and out every week is they're flown in by float plane. Yep. Challenges just in transportation and moving people around throughout the season.
There's one word I'm going to tell you, Jim. It's called weather. And weather is the devil in Alaska, because we have rain, we have fog, we have low ceiling. And when we have low ceiling, our bush pilots can't fly. And
Nor do you want them to fly, by the way.
No. Lord, no. We want these pilots to be safe, obviously, because we want our clients to get in there safe. We want to get in there safely. But weather is our number one factor.
And, ironically enough, none of us have really figured out how to control that yet.
We can't do it. Yeah. We can't do it. And nor do I. We want to try. Okay? I don't want to go there. But as long as we got the weather in our favor, basically getting people there, they have to fly into Anchorage. Okay, so wherever you're from, you have to fly into Anchorage. And just one step back, our change day is on Thursday to Thursday. Okay, so we have to ask our clients to get in on a Wednesday, sometime in the afternoon, Wednesday night. By Wednesday night, they kind of need to be in Anchorage because just like Sawyer and I had a problem with today with our flight delayed, if you miss your flight, unfortunately, we're not going to get you in there. Okay, that's why we need our clients there on Wednesday. Thursday morning, they basically get an Uber over to Iliamna Air Taxi, which is just on the backside of Ted Stevens Airport. Iliamna Air Taxi is a small mom-and-pop air service, which you will also book your flight through them. They want to talk to everybody. They want to get to know you. We were actually going to try to add that in our package, but they advised us not to. As far as cancellations, yada, yada, we'd never get money back, and they want to talk to everybody. And I think that's cool. It's part of the operation. It's part of the experience, okay? But once you got your Iliamna Air Taxi flight booked and you fly to Iliamna on Thursday morning, usually that flight leaves between just, say, 8 and 10. You just never know. They let us know, obviously, once we have our schedule for the season. But basically, once you're in Iliamna, that's when our package pretty much picks you guys up. Rainbow River Aviation will be there waiting for you in Iliamna Airport. They're going to take all your luggage, all your bags. They're going to load you in a van and drive you to Pike Lake, which is about 5 minutes away. And then they're going to load you in their de Havilland Beavers, usually 4 to a plane, if not 3 to a plane. Like I say, we take 6 per week. So I think they're running 3 and 3. And then along with that plane is going to be your luggage, the fuel for the week, the food for the week. So everything for us is dependent on planes. Okay. And our chef Kai, I mean, he has to do all his shopping via Shopper in Anchorage. Okay, so basically he's doing all that stuff behind the scenes, sending our shopper an email. She's getting all, hopefully it all comes. Okay, this is the thing, guys. Sometimes it doesn't come. Sometimes there's weight restrictions. And if I needed a part and somebody brought too much stuff, guess what? My part's not coming. I got to wait another week for that. So that's the kind of logistics side that makes me get more gray hair, but I deal with it with a smile.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, this is part of operating in remote Alaska.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of people don't realize that, whether it's parts, all the food for the week, everything you guys need to operate seamlessly and smoothly, every single thing is flown in.
Yes.
And logistically, that's a challenge. It's also, when people say, well, why is Alaska, more expensive than a trip to Montana? It's like, well, there's a lot of reasons, but that's one of the big ones.
Yeah.
Nothing comes easy out there.
No. Everything is flown in. If I need a part, thank you, Elon Musk, for Starlink, because before we had Starlink, we had Dish, and oh my, that was tough. That was really tough. And we had a sat phone, but Starlink makes it easier. I can literally YouTube something, get the right part number, and that has eliminated, me waiting 3 weeks now for stuff, thankfully.
So that's an advancement.
It's a big advancement. It's a big advancement. And also, folks, it's a big advancement for our clients. They can have FaceTime chats with their family. Some people need that. I mean, we are out in the middle of nowhere. Obviously, they have significant others. They want to make sure they made it there. In the past, they couldn't even check in a lot of times. Okay, Kim would let them use the sat phone if they begged her. But other than that, now we can legally say we've got Starlink. It's better than 5G. It's fast. Okay, so
it's getting harder anywhere in the world of fishing, no matter how remote or how far across the planet you are, to not be connected these days. Starlink has changed the game everywhere.
It has. It has. Some people like it. Some people don't. I mean, I'm not a big tech guy, but honestly, when I need to fix something and if I need a part, I want it, and I want it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, once you get into camp, Sawyer, everything that you guys do moving up and down the river throughout the week is via jet boat.
Yep, exactly. So we split the river into 4 sections. We have our crew consists of 4 guides and a cook. That's it. So kind of back to that family setting, very small crew. But anyway, we break the Nushagak into 4 sections. I have the upriver section. There's a guy that starts at camp. He starts fishing right away. Guy below him, and then Dave has the lowest section. So for Dave and I, we can jet. Some mornings I'm jetting 2 hours up if I want to get to fresh water that hasn't been touched. And other mornings I'm just jetting a half hour up, really just feeling it out. And it just allows us to rotate water. You're fishing new water potentially every day. So that's what's nice. Western style fishing, once I get to a spot, we throw the oars in, and you're fishing like you're fishing a river in Montana.
Yeah, engine gets cut off, you're drifting and rowing.
Exactly,
in those jet boats.
Exactly. It's covering water. We don't like to just run around on the tiller the whole time. That's
not fishing.
It's not fishing.
It's not fishing.
It's not fishing.
I'm sorry. I mean, guide is not driving a boat.
Right.
A guide is guiding his clients fishing. Row the boat. Drives me crazy hearing jet motors run around. It does. And we don't hear it much. Once in a while we do. It's just like, get to your spot, put those oars in, and work. Work for your fish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I love the fact too that, you mentioned earlier, like the Kenai. If you go up and fish the Kenai, you're going to catch fish. You're going to catch some big fish,
Absolutely.
but you are going to be surrounded by hundreds of people, sometimes hundreds of boats. I mean, it's kind of a gong show a lot of times during the season. The big draw of the Nush is how little traffic and how few anglers you guys see. How often are your guests fishing around other anglers or seeing other anglers?
It just depends. We do have a fly out operation that comes in once in a while. And they drive me insane because they don't know where the hell they're going. Sorry, whoever this is. Yes, I am pointing a finger at you, but they don't know where the hell they're going. They don't even know what they're doing. And it just bothers me a lot, just for the noise factor in all reality. I mean, obviously, I don't own the river. I want people to have fun, but the fly out thing in me I have a beef with it. I'm sorry. How can your guide, unless he's doing that fly out every day, understand that fishery? Because look, folks, our fishery changes from the time we get there till the time we leave. Okay, when we first start, there's no salmon in the system. As that first salmon shows up, the fish know it, and they know this is dinner. And now everything is just changing. You can see it at your eyes. And if you're not on that river every day, you are going to be lost. And to me, for somebody who's paying $15,000, $20,000 for an experience and some dude doesn't know what he's doing, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I think that makes it one of the most fun things about guiding on the Upper Nushagak is the fact that it's always changing. Every single day, it's a new riddle out there. And, fish are moving. There could be a new fish in the system, a new type of salmon in the system. There could be 3 types of salmon in the system. Something is going on. Something is changing. And that's your challenge for the day is to figure it out. So you don't get bored up there. Okay. So a lot of people will tell you that, oh, you're at the Walmart of fishing, right? There's fish everywhere. That's not the case. It is more difficult than a lot of folks think, especially where we are. So that's the challenge and the fun part about guiding is it does not get boring on the Upper Nushagak. And to emphasize, we split the river into 4 sections so that guide learns that beat. He's on that beat every single day, okay? And if he keeps coming back year after year, he's going to know it better than anybody out there. And that's kind of our goal. That's why we like to split it like we do. You're going to learn your beat. You're going to learn every stick in that beat. You're going to know where every fish is. You're going to try to. And that just improves your client's overall experience. If your guide actually knows what's going on, it makes your experience you look more professional.
Yeah, there's a concept, right? Your guide knows what's going on. That's awesome.
Right? Professional.
Well,
we are professional.
That's right. And when the clients, let's say you have 6 clients in camp, they're going to fish with the different guides and on the different section throughout the week. So they're rotating around, seeing different water, fishing fresh water, but also getting a chance to fish with 4 different guides.
Exactly. You're going to be with some of us once, some of us twice. It just depends how that rotation falls on Friday.
And depends on how you behave as a client, right? It's
No. I want the
I'm
bad
kidding.
ones.
Yeah,
Give me the knucklehead. Let's do this.
Well, what do you guys think surprises first-time guests the most when they visit the Nush and come and fish with you guys and experience that fishery for the first time? What blows their mind, or what are their takeaways?
Our teamwork. There's no I in team here. Any lodge in Alaska, if you have to work as a team, if not, you ain't going to make it. In my opinion, you're going to have turnover. You're going to have guides. Hiring guides every year. I don't want to do that. I want to trust in these employees and make them family, and want to keep them around, want to pay them more money to keep them around, incentives, bonuses, bonus trips, but teamwork. That's number 1. Yeah. That's what everybody sees with us. I am not afraid to fill your water glass. I am not afraid to do the dishes. There's no job up there I will not do. You have to lead by example.
Yeah. Sorry, what do you think? What are some big takeaways for first-timers that come to the Nush?
Yeah, I would like to emphasize and echo that, it is the teamwork. A lot of folks do see the extra work that is involved in running a remote camp. You're not just a guide when you're up there. There are times when you are a host and you are a waitress or a waiter and you are helping the cook, and then you're going to get the wood. And there's a lot of extra work, and folks take note of that. And that's rewarding. But I think a lot of people are surprised when they first step off that float plane. I know I was my first time going to Alaska and looking around, watching the plane take off, and wow, I am actually in the middle of nowhere. There's not a town, a village, or a city near me within 50 miles. And I think describing that experience for people, you can't unless you do it, unless you go up there and you give it a shot. So I think that's really what takes people back, is just where they're at and where camp's at. You know, just when you land, that's one thing, but when you actually get to camp and you come around the corner and you see the buildings, and then you kind of put two and two together that, wow, this is an operating remote camp in the middle of nowhere. There's a grizzly bear right next to it. That is what shocks a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm sure, especially coming from a city or a place that's the antithesis of wilderness Alaska.
Yeah, and most people have not heard what just nothing sounds like quiet,
dead silence.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a funny story. This is 2019. I had clients, Gary and Rex, in Montana. You know, they were from there. I was guiding Sawyer section at the time. I drove probably upriver, hour and a half. I shut the boat off, and Gary goes, "Dave, can you show me how to start this boat up?" And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Well, if something happens to you, camp we thought was in the middle of nowhere." He goes, "Now we really know we're in the middle of nowhere." I said, "Just float downriver. You'll be fine."
Get on the oars. You'll get there eventually.
You'll be fine.
I love
Fish
it.
along the way.
Well, let's talk specifically more about the fishing in the river itself. First off, the Nush is known for its insane king salmon runs, always has been. Walk us through the run timing and why the river is so good when it comes to this particular species.
So, I mean, the king salmon, or excuse me, the king run on the Nushagak, it's basically the only king salmon run left almost in the state of Alaska. I mean, there's the only place I think technically, I think you're allowed to still keep one down where you can. I mean, we're 278-ish miles up from Bristol Bay. So for us, they're pretty much a bycatch. But we do depend on those salmon for feeding our fish, basically, because our fish are eat trout, the grayling, the char are eating the salmon's flesh. They're eating the eggs.
Everything's there because of those salmon.
Because of those
The whole
salmon.
ecosystem relies
On these salmon. They are a huge part of it. But the king timing is different, and it's been changing in all reality. My first years there, we'd see our first king around like July 12th sometimes. Now it's getting a little bit later. What's causing that? I don't know, but it's also extending it farther into August. Like last year, we still had kings around August 17th-ish. Just say they were on their tail end, but we still had them. Okay, so I would say the main king run would be just say middle of July to beginning of August. They're pretty much going to be done. But on good run years, it could extend into the middle of August. Okay. But the interesting thing about the king run is they bring out the biggest fish, as far as, I mean, rainbows. Because a king is a very, very flighty salmon. He can feel you coming. And those big rainbows they don't want to be right by them, but they're going to be close to them. Because a smart trout does not want to be getting his butt kicked by a salmon. Salmon are mad when they're spawning. They want to just attack anything around them. If you get too close to them and those kings feel you, they're gone. And everything is done. If you don't wait a couple hours till everything settles down. What we figured out here is we like to start mousing over these kings because we even feel that plopping weight in there, or a streamer gets them on edge. So now we're mousing over these reds, and we are noticing it's pretty fire.
Yeah, because and I think a lot of people don't understand this. You're not fishing for those big salmon. You're fishing for the fish that are there because of the big salmon.
Yes.
And, when you fish over red with a mouse, you're targeting that rainbow that's downstream or close to where those salmon are. Yep. And that's where you're going to get the reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that. I mean, everything is there. I mean, not just the other fish in the rivers, but the entire ecosystem is predicated upon those salmon being in the river. The birds, the bears, everything exists because of the salmon. Yeah. But talk about the other fish species that you're namely targeting in the Nush that are really kind of the reason for people to come up there.
Excuse me. Sorry about that, folks. We are targeting leopard rainbows. From what my understanding, a leopard rainbow is only home to Alaska and Russia. And then we're also targeting what we consider trophy grayling. Our grayling are huge, folks. I mean, average 14 to 16 with chances of 18 to 22 inches. I mean, that is a trophy grayling. And then we also have Arctic char dolly varden, which are coming with the salmon as well, because our dollies are sea runs, so they're following the salmon as they come up. So basically, For example, when our salmon are staged, what we are doing is we are sight fishing or trying to sight fish these rainbows, these dollies, these grayling behind these salmon when we are in the salmon reds. And I want to just say this. We are not just sitting in salmon reds fishing, because you can pinch every fish in there. And what does that do for the next day and the next day? Why do you want a bunch of sore lip fish? Why do you want, we are single hook barbless because I like my fish not smiling at you. Okay. These people that are using barbs up there, I'm tired of seeing fish with their faces gone. Pinch your damn barb, keep a tight line. He's going to stay on the hook. All right, folks. It's ridiculous. These fish are gorgeous. They're breathtaking. A rainbow up there doesn't look like the next one. They have all different traits, and I want to keep them as pretty as they are. Okay. But we are sight fishing. So when we see a big rainbow behind a king, we're going to help that client spot that fish. The hard part is, just say when we're using beads, a lot of times you cannot feel the eat. Even if you have an indicator on there, that fish is not going to run with that. So we are actually watching it. We'll watch the fish come over, watch them eat, and a lot of times we have to tell the people to set the hook because they're going to spit that hard bead out in a millisecond. It's hard. It's not soft. They know it's not real. Now you have to have that client trust in you. Oh, I didn't feel anything. Just trust me. All right? I'm watching him eat it. That's how you build client guide trust as well.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the beads. That's just a part of fishing Alaska anywhere in the Bristol Bay region and elsewhere because, again, when those rainbows, the grayling, the char, the dollies, they're all in there, they're in there eating the byproducts of salmon, whether it's the eggs, down to late season when the salmon are dying and decaying, they're moving on to the flesh and they're actually eating the fish itself. But it's always a part of it. Some places it's the only part. You're going to go up and all you're going to do is bead. But with you guys, yes, there is a time and a role that those beads play. But you guys are fishing a lot of other things. Sawyer, talk to us about that as far as what people can expect for diversity of techniques and kind of throughout the season.
Absolutely. My favorite way to fish and guide is mousing. And I always have folks ask about the mouse. And I tell them, you got to commit to the mouse for a day, and a lot of times you will be rewarded. On the upper Nushagak, we have a lot of structure, and mousing is a go-to all day. When the salmon are there and when the salmon aren't there, a guy can stick to a mouse the whole entire day, and still have a lot of opportunities. We do have some dry fly folks that come up too. And if you want to catch a lot of grayling, throw a dry fly. What's interesting is our trout really don't eat the dry fly. Typically just your grayling will. So, which brings us to streamers. Your last one, streamers. Our trout up there are savages. They want meat. Smolt runouts, sculpin, you name it, they're on it. So, those are the three, different ways that we're fishing. Again, I'm not a nympher as well. I try to teach people something different, something new. So when we're throwing these beads, we're not watching a bobber. We're having people tight line them sometimes, and teaching people skills that they can use not only that work on the upper Nushagak, but that work in Montana, that work in Chile, that work all over the world. So that's the biggest thing is teaching a client something new that they can retain and use somewhere else around the world.
Yeah, I love that. You just said something that I think is so cool. The fact that these rainbows are savages. Yeah. And I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I've fished, in the Western U.S. or I fished back home on the East Coast and we have rainbows. Well, these Alaskan rainbows, these Nushagak leopard bows, these are not your dainty mayfly sipping trout, right? These things are predators. Talk a little bit about kind of the techniques for fishing this type of rainbow, which again is a very different type of rainbow than what people might expect in their lower 48 home waters. Sure. Because it's a different animal altogether.
I always tell folks, once you hook that rainbow, the odds of you landing him are not great because I don't know his next move. I don't know what he's going to do. They really remind you of steelhead, between the big rosy spot on their gill plate, and also just their next move. You don't know what they're going to do. Sometimes they rock it, 3-4 feet out of the water, or sometimes they dog you downriver. So you just don't know. And really they remind me of brown trout. Honestly, it's like if you put brown trout up there, the way they act, again, the only dry fly they're going to eat is a mammal. They want protein, and you watch these fish develop throughout the year. When we show up early season, they're off the spawn, they're hungry. but they're usually thin. And then you might see that same fish a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, and our fish don't really grow in length more. They just get girthier, I guess you could say. Yeah. So, I've had instances where I caught a fish or had a client catch a fish in mid-July, and then you catch that fish in late August, and he's 5 pounds heavier.
Same fish.
And same fish, and you can't even hold him in your hands. So, obviously they have a short feeding window. They have a brutal winter, like we mentioned earlier. So when they have that window, when that window opens up, they're on and they're going to be aggressive.
They're all in. They're eating everything they can. And again, they're not dainty. I mean, they are absolute predators.
Right. There's no lack of commitment from those guys.
Yeah. The thing about them too, what separates them from a lower 48 trout to Alaska is if you miss that fish, he's looking for it. Cast at him again. If you pinch him and still miss him, he's still looking for it. 6 times, folks. Just keep casting at him and drill that hook in his side. Sawyer and I were fishing last week of the season. We were just fishing as guides. We're wrapping it up way upriver. I hook a fish. I'm fighting him for like 5-10 seconds. He comes off. No big deal. Sawyer comes through. Same fish.
Popped him.
You ain't doing that down here.
No.
You pinch him, that fish is running for the hills, folks. And that's what's hard to get in people's heads too. Like, don't get upset if you miss him. Just make another cast. He's going to eat.
Yeah. Don't throw a temper tantrum.
No,
stay in the game.
Just
get it back
game.
out there.
Keep your head in the damn game. Come on. And we're here doing it. Come on. We're getting jacked up. You know what I mean?
I also have so much respect for the leopard rainbows, specifically on the upper Nushagak, because of how they have to winter. There are no lakes on the Nushagak. Okay, so they cannot just go to a lake and sit in a hole and eat flesh all winter long. Okay, they have to, especially way upriver. You go, couple hours upriver and it splits off, and it's a lot of spring creek influence, and it's shallow in spots. And a lot of those fish up there have to go way downriver in order to survive. And the fact that you see them back up there the next year, it's just it blows your mind. Because the upper Nushagak will freeze solid in some spots, and you just wonder how some of these fish make it. And that just emphasizes why we want to take care of our fish and take care of our resource and rotate sections and use single hook barbless and just, again, take care of your resource because it is fragile. It is fragile.
Very fragile. People don't understand it.
Yeah. Fragile resource, hardy fish, but fragile overall resource.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about gear and equipment. This is a question we get all the time from people thinking about a trip or planning a trip. For someone who is prepping for a trip to Outpost, what rod weights, lines, and setups should they plan on bringing along?
We always like to tell people a 7-weight is an all-around rod. 7-weight rod, 7-weight line floating. I mean, if people are versatile and know how to use a sinking line, I tell them to bring it. But if people don't know how to use a sinking line, leave it at home. Give me a floating line. I can coach that person much better. I can see that line better. Sinking lines for us are tough to detect a strike because it's down there. But 7-weight line, 7-weight rod. But basically, we supply everything from the end of your fly line down. We're supplying the tippet, the split shot. We're building all our own leaders. Okay, like we said, the Nushagak is very woody. Be prepared to get snagged. Okay, there's lots of snags in the Nushagak. If you're not getting snagged, you're not fishing. Okay. And it doesn't bother us. We're supplying the flies for the week. So get snagged as much as you want, folks. I don't care. We're going to work to get those flies back so we can keep you fishing. Okay. But we supply everything we like to say from the fly line down. Okay. That's all on us. Now, if people want to bring some of their own stuff, they're more than welcome to. Okay. I have a detailed fly list on our website separated from month to month with some patterns on there. Bring some if you'd like to. But if not, they're on us.
You got it.
We got it covered. Got it covered.
But people are bringing their own boots and waders, their own, rain gear, some warm stuff.
Exactly.
Because it's Alaska. You never know. So you come prepared.
Yep.
And they're bringing their own rods and reels. Do you guys have any backups if something happens?
We do. And we also rent rods. Okay. We have Hardy Marksman Z's up there that we will rent people for $50 for the week. If they break one, there's no extra charge. Okay. But we like people to bring their own raincoat, a good one, and their own waders. It's too hard for us to, with all the different body sizes out here, folks, just bring your own stuff. Okay. If something breaks, something has a hole in it, we do have extra spares and we can probably jam you in something, but it's just more comfortable in your own gear.
Yeah. And on that note, don't bring crappy waders
No.
and clothing to Alaska
No.
because you're living in this outfit all day long for the entire week. You want it to be really good quality. You want to stay warm and dry. That's
Absolutely.
part of being, in the game. But don't skimp when it comes to your layers, to your warmth, to your rain gear, and especially to your waders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't even mind clients messaging us because our weather changes all the time. If they want to message us, like just say 2 weeks before their trip, shoot me an email because obviously we're up there. I'll let them know what the weather's going to be. We've been looking at the weather kind of on our Garmin inReaches, and it's pretty close. It's not bad. So I can give somebody a relatively decent forecast for their week.
Yeah. How about spay rods? You guys get clients to bring spay rods up? Any application up there? Is it like, leave them at home? It's a single-handed game.
There's a few applications here and there. Overall, the upper Nushagak does sort of narrow down, especially the further and further up you go. However, we do have a few swing runs that we know about. In fact, one of the best swing runs is right in front of camp. Yeah. And sometimes we take advantage of that after the end of the day. So there's also a few further and further downriver you go. It just really depends on what the river's doing at the time. Wading the upper Nushagak is very difficult, and it's something we don't really like to have folks do because it's dangerous at times. There's not a rock bigger than my head on the upper Nushagak. It's a lot of this small pebble and gravel. But it gives away. It's similar to like when you're standing in the ocean and the tide comes in and you feel the sand go out from under your feet. It's very similar when you're wading on the upper Nushagak, and you could step off into a 10-foot hole and not even know it. So having folks out there wading, swinging, not a ton, but we've had folks bring up microspace. I wouldn't bring up, any of your 13-foot rods. Keep it short, 12-foot, 12 and a half, and you can have some fun with a trout spay.
What about oft overlooked pieces of gear that people say, oh man, I wish I would have brought this, or I can't believe I forgot that? Any other pieces of equipment that clients find helpful or you guys would recommend when people are making a trip up to the Nush? I mean, sunglasses, obviously got to be able to see fish.
Yeah. Make sure you have a good pair of sunglasses. Yeah. Obviously, like I say, a good raincoat. I cannot stress on that enough. All right.
You'll find out if it's waterproof if it decides to unload in Alaskan weather. Yeah.
Real quick. Have layers. You can always take them off. Okay, especially on your boat rides. And if you come up later and later in the season, sometimes you're in the morning, you're driving and it's 35 degrees out, and you might have a 2-hour boat ride. And sorry, you're just might have to suffer a little bit. So just have some extra clothes. Puffy. I think puffy has been a lifesaver for me. Puffy pants and even just your standard Patagonia puffy.
Yeah. So. When I go up to, especially early season, late season, I always bring a huge pair of mittens just for the boat ride. Yes. It's just, you don't want to start the morning cold when you get, to your first fishing spot.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very
true. And a good waterproof backpack, something you can bring in the boat with you with your extra layers. But yeah, it's, bring it with you because you just want to be comfortable. You want to be in the game, right?
Absolutely. I mean, a spare rod. I mean, if somebody wants to bring something spare, I would say a spare rod. Yeah. Things do break up there. We are using heavy pound tippet, 20-pound test, 15-pound test is what we are using. Things break. If you hit your rod with split shot, that rod's probably going to break. So we always try to recommend somebody bringing at least a backup rod. And like I said, we do have plenty there to use. We're not going to. Oh, you broke both your rods. You're going to have to sit on the bench. No, we're going to keep you in the game.
You're out.
Yeah. No.
Well, I want to talk more about your guide team because you talked a few minutes ago about the importance of teamwork with the whole crew up at Outpost. But what can people expect from the guide team? I mean, what's neat, this 40-plus year history of the camp itself, a lot of history with great guides that have come through over the years. Who makes up your current guide team and what makes your guides particularly well-suited to the river and to where you guys are operating?
So far myself, I don't really want to call myself a head guide, but I guess you can call me that. That's just it's a bad terminology. I don't like head guide because I want my guides to be as good as I am or better than me, and Sawyer, and Brett and Luke, all those guys are really good, because I want a fisherman. I don't want a guide working for me that when he has a day off, he's sitting on the couch. I want him fishing. I want to fish from dark to dark, and these guys will tell you, this is no bullshit. I want to row 20 miles a day, and I want to do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Okay. I don't want to quit because let's face it, folks, we don't know if we're waking up tomorrow, and I don't want to leave no rock unturned. Okay. I want no quit in my guides. I want them to go above and beyond to show that client the best experience he can find, he can get.
Yeah.
So,
and we always talk to young people that call in and say, I want to get started in the industry. What should I do? One of my pieces of advice is, go guide. And if you have the opportunity, go guide in Alaska because it's a great place to start. But to do it well and to be consistent, it's not an easy place to work because you're working long days. And if you want to, be a legitimate professional, you got to put your time in. You got to work hard.
Yeah.
But
and for starters, I mean, for us, it starts off with your captain's license. You're not going to work for me unless you have a 6-pack captain's license because it's the law. Any person, you're getting in any motorboat for hire, he needs a captain's license or she. Yeah. And if you have that, you're already taking the step to wanting to come work up there.
That's right. Well, I will give you guys a shameless plug. Having booked you through Yellow Dog for many, many years, we get constant post-trip reports from our mutual clients that talks about how fishy the team is, how hardworking the entire crew is. And that's, again, that's one of those seamless things for the clients. They should just, not even really think about it, but it's certainly something we notice. And it's not always easy to put together that kind of team where everyone is clicking on the same level and working together and firing at all times. It's really important. And, kudos to you for not only assembling that crew, but maintaining that crew season after season. That's a big deal.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about the seasonality of the fishery. And we mentioned that a little bit with like the salmon runs and kind of when they start and when they end. But talk to us how kind of your summer season progresses with regards to, when you start, what you kind of see throughout those months, and then when the season ends.
Sure. I'd say, early season, we usually like to start our season around the 2nd or 3rd week of June. Starting a little earlier than that, we've noticed our fish are, they're
still
just
spawning.
They're still spawning, and we want them to come off the spawn, have some time, have some rest, get settled in, and then hit them. So for your early season in June, early July, mostly streamers and mousing, excuse me. Fish are hungry. They've been under ice. It's been dark all year, and they're ready to eat. And that slowly transitions. We'll start to see our first salmon usually the week after the 4th of July, somewhere in there. And the run that we see first is the chums. And our chum run starts, like I said, 3rd week, 2nd week of July, and that'll go about to the end of July. Now, a lot of times our salmon runs will overlap. So we'll have the chums, we'll be fishing the chums for a while, and then your kings will start to show up. And you'll see some of your fish some of your rainbows still hanging on the chum reds, while some are starting to transition to the kings. And it can be complicated. It can also be really good. It just depends. And then we'll start to see our sockeye show up. Sockeyes start to show up around beginning of August, and they'll go through very weather dependent, but towards the end of August. So there's a lot of overlap in our salmon. There's times when you're there and you see 4 different species of salmon. The next salmon we see after our sockeye are the silvers, and the silver run in the upper Nushagak has been great the last 3 years I've been there. So, but after our sockeyes die off, we sort of transition from beating to it's more trophy season now. So the fish are hungry. Our rainbows are full. They've been eating eggs all season. They've been eating flesh. And the fishing can become a little more challenging, but we like to call it trophy time. All right. So towards the end of the season, that's when you're going to get your biggest fish. So that's kind of how the season progresses. Again, it starts off early season streamers. You'll have your salmon come in. I want to emphasize throughout the whole season, we are fishing streamers and mice. It doesn't matter if the salmon are there or not, because you're not going to have a constant red. For instance, upriver, I don't have as many salmon. I have smaller salmon reds. So the in-between fillers, we're back to fishing the bank. We're back to fishing structure. So yeah, again, if you're a streamer angler or you like to throw mice, this is your place.
Yeah. And I loved what you said earlier too about, once the salmon are there, and it might only be for a few weeks on a particular species or a short window in time, but that's what allows that rainbow that in June, was, same length, but maybe a little skinnier to put 5 pounds on towards the late season. It's amazing how fast that happens with these rainbows. It's crazy. And you see it because you get to know some of these fish. Like, I caught this fish, 2 months ago. This is the same fish, yet it's a completely different animal at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what in your opinion, Dave, is the most overlooked time of the season when clients are thinking about, booking? Obviously, people love that trophy time, or they, love the early season mousing, or whatever it is. But what's the most overlooked window for your operation?
I don't know if I would call it overlooked, Jim. I would just call it, I would say probably our latter part of the season, and we do get folks coming up there. But the latter part of the season, I love to just call it trophy week, because you could catch, your PR fish on the next cast. And could it happen? Couldn't happen? I don't know. That's fishing. But that's when you have the greatest potential for it to happen.
Catching the biggest rainbow.
The biggest rainbow,
season.
Yes. Because they just gorge themselves on 4 different styles of eggs and flesh. And basically when our silvers come up, the silvers spawn a little bit and then they keep moving. So when the silver time is, we're not really beating when silvers are there. We are throwing flesh. We are throwing our big streamers again, some smolt, because there's some smolt runouts during that time of year. And then we're like Sawyer said, we're back to mousing. But I would think that's kind of our overlooked time of the year. The trouble with that time of the year as well, it's getting colder and it's the weather. Fall's approaching, more fog, kind of harder to get flights in and out. But I would say that's kind of overlooked because, our beginning season when all the salmon are there, that's mayhem all the time.
Yeah.
But if I was somebody coming up or looking into coming to Alaska, and you fished, a little bit and you're all right to, not have that rod bent, just say all the time. This is fishing, folks. Even though we are in Alaska, this is still fishing. This is not catching. I would look in latter part of August, beginning of September.
Yeah.
I would. And that's my favorite time.
And the weather can scare people off, but again, it's like just bring good stuff.
Just bring good stuff.
And it can pay off.
The cool thing about us is once we get you there, you are fishing. You are not dependent on that plane to be able to fly out every day. Once we have you in our camp, even if you are delayed coming into camp, you are going to fish your heart out because we're going to work you.
Yeah.
Okay? Because not only are we on the river, like our guide day is from everybody leaves at 8, everybody's back by 5:30. But after dinner, because we basically have 22 hours of daylight, you can fish your heart out till 2 a.m. if you want to in our home water.
Fish till you drop.
Fish till you drop. And people will do that. But by Monday, they're pretty much dragging a little bit. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, when have you fished for 8 hours in the last week? And nobody raises their hand. And then I ask them, what about in the last month? And then a lot of people don't raise their hand. And I'm like, okay, we need to fish more, folks.
Yeah.
We need to fish more. Take time.
You're in the right place.
You're in the right place.
That's awesome. Well, Outpost on the Nush is one of the smallest programs that we know of operating in Alaska. It's one of the smallest programs we book through Yellow Dog. Maximum capacity, typically of 6 anglers a week.
Yep.
You guys certainly have the water and the room to expand, but by design, you've chosen to keep the footprint and the number of anglers each week small. That's by design.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about why you've chosen that number and the philosophy of keeping that small number.
Just because we're in Alaska, folks, just because we have a lot of river miles, just say to ourselves, doesn't mean that there's a fish under every rock. And to me, that's the biggest misunderstanding of Alaska. When I first started guiding there, my first question to Camille, and not that this matters, I asked her, how many fish per mile? Rainbows. And she says, Dave, I can't answer that question. I could answer that question right now. Before the salmon get there, there's less than 100. When the salmon start coming, obviously they're bringing more fish from the lower reaches, and obviously our numbers get more bigger and bigger. But as far as expanding and trying to bring more people in, it's just I don't want the headache. I want to keep it small. I want to keep it intimate, family style, because I think clients get a better experience. And I'm not pulling my hair out trying to manage 20 employees and that many more flights coming in there. Okay. In the end, in this business, it's all about the logistics. But my main thing is I want that client to have the best time in his life. And for me, it's a small niche group, because a lot of our clients, family, bring your whole family up. Now you have our whole camp to yourself. You're not splitting this camp with somebody that you might not get along with in whatever that may be, politically, fishing wise, whatever. He's better than you. I don't want the dick measuring contest in my lodge. I don't. I want everybody to have the best time that they can and that we can show them.
And that's what 6 Anglers delivers.
That's what 6 Anglers delivers.
I love it.
I will take a max of 8.
Yeah. If it's like an intact group.
As long as everybody knows everybody, I will take a max of 8. But again, the problem with that is it's 2 people have to bunk together. Mm-hmm. Not that this is an issue. All of us don't get, are working every day, which is not a problem. But I like a guide to get some rest. Our job is very physical. Rowing these jet sleds all day long is basically 1,000 pounds, if not more. So, can a lot of people do that? For me, I get to my spot at 8:30, and I am rowing that boat until lunchtime. And then after lunch, sometimes I'll even skip it. If you don't want lunch today, I'll eat on the run. I don't care. So there's times I am rowing that sled unless somebody gets snagged, hook up a fish, picture time from 8:30 to 4.
Long day.
It's a long day.
Absolutely. Well, the Nushagak, the area that surrounds where you guys are, the greater Bristol Bay region, it's one of the most ecologically intact fisheries in the world. And in large part, thanks to conservation efforts against development projects like Pebble Mine, which a lot of anglers are familiar with. Yeah. With everything that's currently going on in Bristol Bay, especially the continued fight to protect, the region from threats like Pebble, what role do you guys think the fly fishing community and the fly fishing industry in Alaska plays in safeguarding these waters? How important is this, looking ahead?
It's hugely important. I'd like to say the number one thing I fell in love with, about Alaska was the life cycle of the salmon and being able to watch it and see how important it is to the state of Alaska. In fact, you look at some of the trees and they have salmon DNA in them. So it's crucial. And I think it not that we're too late, but it's like folks have to start acting now to protect what we have, because we've seen other places around the world be taken advantage and they're not the same as they were. And folks just need to realize that this is an incredible resource that is somewhat still untouched and it's self-reliant. It sustains its own. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to protect that. What we've been doing is teaming up with Alaska's Trout Unlimited, donating a trip, trying to get more awareness to them. Also working with Save Bristol Bay and just spreading the word out there, teaching people. I think that's something that needs to happen more in the fly fishing industry, is just not just showing people your lodge, but teaching people what's happening here. Why is it important? Why is this resource important to you? Because if something does happen up there to Alaska, that's our lives. That's our passion. It gets destroyed, so.
But not just us. It's the indigenous people too. That too.
It's the entire ecosystem, including the people.
Right.
That's what a lot of people don't realize. The Bristol Bay region, you've got the largest stocks of wild salmon on the planet. Yeah. And you just don't want to mess with that. No. It's so perfect, and it's in state of existence as it has been forever. Exactly. And for us to come in there and mess that up, whether it's a mining project or irresponsible development, short-sighted projects, for economic gain, it just doesn't make sense, because you trash that resource and it impacts everything. It's all there, as we said earlier in the program. It's all there because of the salmon.
Exactly.
It's you can't even overstate the importance of those salmon stocks.
Without the salmon, it doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. It all goes away. Everything,
It's
including
done.
the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, looking ahead, guys, what's next for Outpost on the Nush? Are there any new developments or exciting things you've got coming, or is it just the commitment to continuing what you're doing and keeping that high standard? What do the next couple of years look like for you guys?
Building, and we want to do some add-ons. I'm gearing or stewing up this crazy idea of going upriver as far as we can and doing like an overnight float. We will cook for you. We'll set the whole thing up, and then we'll float into camp the next day.
To get even a little more remote,
just to get even a little more remote. I want, because we have the gear now. We bought all the camping gear to do this. We already have the boats. Now it's just time to do it.
Well, sign me up. I want to be on that first trip. That sounds awesome.
It's going to be insane.
I think also, stuff that we're working on is, we are fairly new to this whole lodge owner thing. eventually, we are working with Hardy on having rods, and eventually maybe looking to getting gear for folks that we know is dependable and that we can have you fitted right so that you don't have to pack for a week in Alaska, because I know that can be difficult and it saves you on weight, and that way we know you're in the right stuff. So, in the next few years, hopefully maybe teaming up with some brands to have great gear up there.
Making it easy.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love it. Yeah. Well, I'll give you guys a chance for a direct plug. If someone is thinking about Alaska, we talked about it earlier in the show, there's a lot of noise out there. There's so many options. Everybody's got the flashy website and the big promises of delivering the ultimate Alaskan experience. Why should they consider Outpost on the Nush over the other lodge and outfitting options and operations in Alaska? Give us the pitch on why they should come to the Outpost.
In my opinion, why they should come to us, number one, it's a small remote setting. We are a very small, intimate camp. We have 5 of us there. If there's 6 people, there's 11 in camp total. I mean, we're one big happy family, joking around with each other. But in all reality, what separates us, from most other lodges, folks, is the remoteness. Is you're not going to see but who's in camp. And to me, that should be a number one seller. And just for our overall experience on the Nushagak River itself. I mean, I've been guiding my section for the last 8 seasons. I pretty much know, unless something new comes in over winter, I pretty much know where everything is. And I love it. I really love it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jim.
You get pretty excited still.
I am.
I love it.
Lost for words.
I love it. Well, Sawyer, what type of angler or guest do you feel is best suited to come up to the Nush and fish with you guys at Outpost? Does it have to be someone who has lots of experience, or are you guys good with first-timers, people that are fairly new to the sport, first trip to Alaska?
I think experience does not matter at all. I think it's the willingness to learn and want to learn and just be coachable. I understand that there's anglers out there that know a lot more than me. But when you're on the upper Nushagak, you're at my home. So those that are willing to just be coachable, that's the best angler. And for those that want to fish, okay, again, there's not much else to do on the upper Nushagak but fish, hang out with the guys, have a few beers and laughs around a campfire here and there and fish. So yeah, if you want to fish for 6 days and fish hard with a fishy crew, come to the upper Nushagak.
I love it.
Yeah. It's been a month, Jim. I'm telling you, but I'm ready to get rid of this shit.
Well, Sawyer and Dave, thank you guys again for taking the time to sit down with us today and share your story. Tell us about your fishery and discuss the magic of the Nush. This has been a great conversation. Really, really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys.
Jim, thanks so much for having us on today. I mean, I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, can't thank you enough. And we just love working with Yellow Dog, and we appreciate you guys as a business partner. Love working with Tom.
Yeah.
And just thank you for the support throughout the years before we owned it and your continued support now.
Well, I do have to tell people, if you've ever dreamed of experiencing Alaska's legendary, backcountry wilderness experience and the fishing, of standing on a wild river, with fish stacked up in front of you, immersing yourself in the raw beauty of this region, then Outpost on the Nush should absolutely be on your radar. It is a special place. To learn more about booking a trip to Outpost on the Nush, visit Yellow Dog Flyfishing online or contact Alaska Program Director Tom Melvin, who is the absolute best in the business when it comes to organizing and planning trips to the land of the midnight sun. Be sure to visit yellowdogflyfishing.com to plan and research trips, source gear, equipment, and flies for your next destination, learn about upcoming podcast episodes, and stay up to date and dialed in on the latest news in fly fishing, travel, and adventure. Join us for our next episode, and remember, keep fishing and keep traveling, because when it's all said and done, no one ever regretted a life of adventure.
This has been another episode of Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing travel and adventure angling. Waypoints is produced by Brian Gregson and written by Jim Klug. Music is written and provided by bluegrass legend Woody Platt. Audio engineered by Sean McCormick. Visit yellowdogflyfishing.com for more location profiles, destination information, travel news, and the industry's best selection of flies and equipment for destination angling.